the goggles that changed everything. Demons in the dark is what many Vietnam Huey chopper pilots claim to have seen after using first-generation night vision. In 1966, U.S. soldiers were given something new, something that would forever change the way war was fought at night. It was called the Starlight Scope, the first practical night vision device deployed in combat. It allowed soldiers to see in near total darkness, amplifying ambient light into glowing green vision. But it didn't just reveal enemy troops, at least not always. Some soldiers began reporting things that couldn't be explained, shapes moving where there were no trees, eyes where no creature should be, and sometimes they saw faces, not human ones. One helicopter pilot swore he saw a swarm of black-winged figures rising from the jungle canopy, circling, watching. Another refused to fly night missions again, claiming the goggles opened a door to something that had always been there, but just out of sight. Official reports chalked it up to stress, sleep deprivation, the fog of war. But the rumors never stopped. Because for some of the men who used that early tech, it didn't feel like seeing in the dark. It felt like seeing into another world. I'm J-Rod, and this is Hollow Light, where the veil is thin, the stories begin. What they saw. What did those early night vision goggles really show? For most soldiers, it was a tactical advantage. Light amplification that could spot snipers, movement, and hidden traps. But for others, it was something else entirely. One chopper gunner, call sign Ghostwalker, claimed he saw figures circling their landing zone one night. They weren't Viet Cong, they weren't even human. He described them as tall, gaunt silhouettes with glowing eyes, hovering, not walking. His report was ignored. He was reassigned a week later. Another patrol unit near Da Nang described a night ambush that never came. They opened fire into the jungle, swearing a dozen shadowy forms were closing in. But when backup arrived, there was nothing. No bodies, no trails, just shredded trees and terrified men. And the strangest part? Their thermal scanners never picked up heat signatures, only movement. It wasn't just the jungle troops either. In 1968, a transport pilot refused to fly after a mission, claiming he saw a man made of shadow standing in the cargo bay mid-flight, visible only through the goggles. When he pulled them off, nothing was there. He smashed the scope and left the base the next morning. So where did this technology come from? Some claim the man behind it was an obscure inventor named Walter Killeen, a brilliant but erratic engineer who pushed night vision beyond simple light amplification. According to fringe reports, Killeen experimented with frequencies designed to pierce non-visible spectrums, what he called the dimensional veil. He vanished in 1971. His patents were sealed and the lab was dismantled. Some say he discovered more than battlefield tech, that the goggles didn't just amplify light, they revealed things humanity was never meant to see. And those who used them in the thick jungle nights of Vietnam, they were the first unwilling witnesses. Seeing the unseen. The human eye can only perceive a sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. What we call visible light is just a thin band between infrared and ultraviolet. But what if the things outside that band aren't just abstract energy? What if they're watching us? Early night vision tech worked by amplifying ambient light, usually starlight or moonlight, through a photocathode tube, converting photons into electrons, then back into an image. But fringe researchers believe that's not all that it did. Some argue it acted like a filter, removing the veil. And that tech, even accidentally, tuned into something beyond just photons. Theories like this aren't new. In ancient cultures, it was believed that certain rituals, herbs, or sacred sites allowed people to see the spiritual realm. In shamanic traditions, the veil between dimensions was thinnest at twilight or in total darkness, places where human senses fail and other senses take over. Sound familiar? In 1973, a suppressed military journal entry, later leaked, referred to dimensional anomalies recorded during night ops in Southeast Asia. The phrase used was chilling. Subjects experienced optical overlap, unknown entities occupying visual planes that did not match terrain scans. In other words, the goggles were seeing things that weren't physically there. Today, researchers in fringe physics call this spectral bleeding. The idea that certain electromagnetic frequencies may momentarily reveal beings or energies from parallel dimensions. They're not hallucinations, they're just not supposed to be visible. Walter Killing supposedly believed this too. One of his notebooks, never published, described a crossover band in the near-infrared range where the fabric between worlds grows thin. He called it the seeing line. And in Vietnam, thousands of soldiers looked through that line night after night without knowing what they were staring into. Or worse, what was staring back. The things they buried. In war, some things go unspoken, not because they didn't happen, but because someone decided they shouldn't be remembered. By 1970, night vision tech had become a staple of U.S. jungle warfare, but quietly, certain units began submitting classified reports describing optical interference, visual bleed, and in some cases, psychological breakdowns due to exposure. These weren't just the usual combat stress write-ups. These reports were sealed. They were redacted, and the soldiers involved transferred, discharged, or simply disappeared from the paperwork. One unit stationed near the Cambodian border was pulled out after just 3 nights of patrol. According to a whistleblower decades later, their final radio transmission described hostile contact with an unknown force. Not enemy fire, not guerrilla fighters, but something crawling out of the tree line with no face and too many legs. Only 2 men from that patrol were recovered. One never spoke again. The other died by suicide within a year later. That stretch of jungle was immediately declared off limits. Satellite photos show what looks like an outpost constructed shortly afterward, then wiped clean. Not repurposed, not dismantled, erased. Some believe Walter Killing's night vision designs revealed more than just enhanced sight. They uncovered a truth buried deeper than politics or propaganda. that war had broken through the veil, and something had come through. In 1972, a memo leaked to a fringe investigative group referred to a directive known only as Project Blacklight. The mission: deactivate all anomalous night optic systems, recover prototype devices, and shut down any personnel exhibiting non-physical visual responses. It was a purge. From that moment forward, next-gen night vision models were redesigned. They were tuned differently, refined for combat, but maybe not for clarity. Because maybe the truth wasn't that the goggles glitched. Maybe they worked too well. And the things we weren't supposed to see, they saw us first. The enemy they couldn't kill. Some enemies bleed, and some enemies vanish, and some were never supposed to be seen. In 1971, a squadron of Huey pilots flying night missions near the Laotian border reported unauthorized fire. A small unit opened up on its own convoy. Friendly fire. At first glance, it was chaos, confusion, miscommunication in the dark. But later interviews told a very different story. The men involved swore they weren't firing on each other. They were shooting at what they called sky shapes. Black, angular forms, some the size of a man, others as large as the helicopters, appearing suddenly in the night vision scopes, drifting like smoke, then darting, impossibly fast. Some looked like they had wings. Others had faces, skulls, eyes, not glowing, watching. One pilot broke down during debriefing. He repeated the same thing over and over.
We weren't supposed to see them. We weren't supposed to see them.
Later that night, he was removed from active duty and sent back stateside. No record of his reassignment was ever found. And it wasn't an isolated case. Across the region, soldiers started to refer to a phenomenon they called ghost flight. Sightings of distant glows in the treetops that would disappear the second the goggles were taken off. Some described voices in the static of the radios. Others claimed entire patrols would get lost for hours, even though they never left the trail. Then there was the Napalm Run, a last-ditch effort to cleanse a zone where several teams had vanished. No enemy resistance, no confirmed kills, just silence. The firestorm that followed scorched several acres of jungle, but no bodies were found. Only melted gear, shattered goggles, and one single black feather fused into a steel helmet. What were they fighting? Some say stress-induced hallucinations. Others whisper it was the jungle itself, alive, ancient, and angry. But a few, a quiet few, believed those pilots saw something. Something that used to stay hidden until we gave ourselves the eyes to see it. And by then, it was too late to look away. Light the lantern. Thank you for walking with me through the jungle fog, the static whispers, and the flickers of what may still be watching from the dark. From whispers of demons in the trees, to classified optics, to soldiers who saw too much and were silenced, one thing is clear. We may have built a device to pierce the night, but in doing so, we may have opened ourselves up to something else. If you have a story, a real encounter, a family tale, or a glimpse of the veil, send it in. You might just hear it on a future episode. And if you've made it this far in the video, please post Night Watchers in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe for more tales from the veil. God bless, stay prayed up, and remember, some lights are meant to guide you home, while others are warnings.